How's everyone doing here? All right, you ready to begin? Yeah. Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Kurt Bieg. I run Simple Machine, which is a small studio here in New York. I also was one of the co-organizers for Play NYC. And when we started off coming up with the Play NYC convention, it was extremely important to me that there was a sense of imagination at the convention. And by imagination, I basically mean like you go to a convention for games and you're used to seeing booth, 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 handout, handout, handout. And I was really adamant to the point of saying that our company would sponsor it and commission artists to be a part of this. I said, when we looked at Terminal 5, we need to get interaction designers in New York who are extremely talented to come in here and put their creations on the walls so that attendees would come in and say, oh, I've seen, okay, another game, and then they would go, what's this? What is this thing? And so this panel is really about this Games Graffiti initiative. That's what we called it, Games Graffiti. And some of the interaction designers who built stuff specifically for Terminal 5, installed it, and what impact, design challenges, and otherwise interesting stories they had about the process of it. So if you can all introduce yourselves and kind of talk about, just let people know the project you did and give a brief synopsis, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Adelle. I'm a creative technologist, and I've developed StarCatcher VR, specifically for Terminal 5 for Play NYC. You guys might have seen it, but you catch those with these nets.
Hi, I'm Andy Wallace, and I develop Salmon Roll, the upstream team, with my partner Jane Friedhoff, and art by Diego Garcia. And it is a two-player collaborative game where you're trying to control either side of a bar and roll a salmon to a particular goal while avoiding bears that jump out and bite the salmon.
Hey everyone, my name is Jenny, and I worked on the game Red Nelly Baker. It's time to clean your bedroom. And it's kind of hidden in the stairwell. So if you try to access the roof, you might have seen it. It's like, it kind of looks like a bedroom, but it's like red themed. And I worked on this game with my collaborator, AP Thompson. It's a game where you're basically cleaning up a messy room.
Awesome.
And yeah.
And there were two other commissioned pieces. One was a gift booth created by Death by Audio Arcade. And the other one was Forest Cup, created by Ivan Safin. And those were all of them. Maybe did I mention that? Right. Okay. Gotta make sure we cover them all. So for the first question that I wanted to ask was just to kind of go down the line, starting with you, Andy. Andy Wallace and Jane Friedhoff I reached out to early on because I was very familiar with their work and also very familiar with just how they work with other people. And I reached out to them to co-chair the curation. And I kind of relied heavily on Andy and Jane to go out and kind of put a list together of really awesome technology, creative interaction designers. Starting with you, Andy, can you tell me what on your end it was like to kind of put this together and work with artists to create these commissions?
Yeah, totally. It's super exciting, first of all, because making installation games is really satisfying. But as we kind of joked about while we were waiting for it to start, they're functionally impossible to make money off of. Like, you can't. It's a losing battle. But they're great, and like they're really exciting. So having an opportunity to actually be able to throw some money at creatives who you think are doing really good work, to be like, you can actually make this thing, is awesome. And we definitely jumped on that opportunity. So that was really great, because we do know there's a lot of game designers and artists in New York who are obviously doing really amazing interactive work. And so it was not hard to find 5 people that we thought would do a killer project. Very, very happy with the folks we got. We actually, like, basically our initial list of folks were like, we're going to contact our initial list. Whoever can't do it there, we'll contact our next person. And I think Kat Small was maybe the only person on that list who wasn't like, yep, let's do it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that list when they presented the list to me. That was like, this is it. And we were like, okay, let's reach out. We'll see if there's other people we need to. We'll get to them. And there was like Okay, they're all pretty much signed on. That's it. That's
Yeah,
done.
it's great.
You're good to go.
So, yeah, thank you.
Adele, would you kind of talk maybe about a little bit of what it was like to be on the other end of that, which was to be kind of commissioned through Andy and Jane and through Simple Machine to kind of put this all together and design a project for it?
Yeah, this is actually a really huge honor for me. I've known Andy and Jenny for a long time now through the indie game scene, and I first came to New York maybe about 4 years ago, and met all of these guys at one way or another through Game Center or come out and play, and have been kind of in and out of the scene a lot. So to be contacted through this, Game Grafitti thing was pretty amazing. So when that came up, and some of my collaborator Matt Pinnis here in the room as well. We kind of got help on the West Coast as well, so we were kind of a little nervous. We wasn't using that much time to build something, bring it home, and do that. And the concept of Starcatcher was going around. Okay, let's just do this. So I guess so there's we actually built the game in VR as well. So initially, that's kind of where we started. We started building a community, and Matt and I have been doing installations of LEDs, and that's the system where we do interactive LED stuff, and so we're like, let's listen to games. So there's a lot of going back and forth between hardware and software and it was a great process. We built this in our living room initially, half the size, and Playcrafting some friends, some people who are there. There we had collaborators. Kennedy said we did all the audio tracks. He's a great composer, and Peter, who got some
Well, it's been an honor to have you and all of the commission artists be a part of it. It really has. Jenny, what about for you? What was your experience like, kind of putting this all together?
I think it was so great to just kind of have this opportunity to kind of, do whatever, but within this limited time zone, this limited scope. And I was working on another project, which I felt like I was getting stuck in design-wise. And, this project has like a bunch of these small prototypes, including one about cleaning up your room. And I actually took that prototype and developed it into the game for Play NYC. And I think it just kind of like a lot of these elements sort of fell into place. And it was just really wonderful to be able to, have a deadline and have resources like money and just even support, and knowing that I'm going to have to show this soon to be able to create something and see it to completion. So I don't know, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's been
really.
so great to do that. And I guess in terms of process, I've been working on this mostly full time on my own, and AP who programmed the game works on it part time, and it's just been a lot of fun to do it. Yeah.
I could see it. For me, it was I have to be honest, Andy and Jane really took the reins on putting everything together and working with you all independently, considering the scale of what everything was going on at the time. I think Andy soon realized that Kurt's probably not going to be the person to be able to handle this. And to be perfectly honest, I kind of think that worked to its benefit as well, because I think that doing the kind of work that you do, to do installations, it really takes someone to understand how that process is. And even just seeing the things that you were able to put together, you would say, oh, and we also need this. And I go, oh my gosh, yeah, I guess we do. I don't even know. I didn't even know that was a thing that we needed.
Pounds of effort too.
Yeah, right, exactly. I guess the next question that I was really interested in hearing about is, I got to play all of the installations that you put together. I still have to come play yours, actually.
Yeah, do it.
One.
Yeah, everyone should come.
Yeah, it's really great.
Thank you.
Just watching people, actually. I couldn't get into play when I did stop by a couple times. But my question is, what do you feel like at a convention like this? What do you feel like knowing that you weren't one of the exhibitors, right, showing a booth and things like that, and knowing what it's like to exhibit or to show something off, how do you feel like your installations impacted the audience? Like, what was their response to seeing something like this at a convention where it's, there's games to play, there's games to play, there's games to play? You want to start, Jenny?
Sure. So, let's see. So I've like attended a bunch of these sorts of game festivals and events at this point, having released like a couple games. And I don't know about everyone else, but I find myself getting extremely tired and exhausted, midway through the day, because it's just like overwhelmingly so many games to play, and you're like always in like a crowded room full of tons of people, and you get maybe like 30 seconds to a couple minutes to like check out each game. And after a while, it's like, oh, what's the difference between one game and another? And that's kind of my experience playing. And some people might like that, but for me, I just get exhausted. So I really wanted to create a space that, you could just chill out with the game, because part of what I like about playing video games is relaxing, So it made a lot of sense to kind of pick this area that was, away from everything else, and just like decorate it so that, you could just like sit down and like take a deep breath and like, spend time with it. Because I think a lot of people play games that way, and they don't play it in like 30 seconds and then I have to give it to like the next person. So that was my response.
Yeah, I mean, I really noticed that about yours too. Was any time that I would come to the stairwell and look down, and there's all these paper art assets. So the whole little alcove in the stairwell is just decorated as the game itself, as like a little living room almost, but all paper objects on the wall. And the thing that I so noticed was, like, even when people came to your installation, there was almost this moment where they would kind of be like, oh, I'm like stepping into a little world here. Like, I'm not even in the convention now. I'm kind of like in this little place, and now I'm going to sit down, and I'm like having this kind of interaction. And particularly with yours, I really felt like there was a real switch that I saw people had when they went from being like a consumer person at an event to like consume things to, whoa, what is this? I'm gonna step into this little world and see what's going on here. It was like really interesting. I remember people were asking you like, can I do this? Is it okay?
Yeah. Like some people were like, oh, can I take off my shoes? Or, it's like, oh, I don't know if I should sit on this.
Yeah.
And, it's nice because, I don't know, it's like nice to relax sometimes, And, yeah, and it's funny to see people ask for permission to do that.
Yeah, which was so different from every other part of the expo.
Yeah,
The convention was just people doing that. So, Andy, what about you? What was your experience of seeing how people reacted?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing with these is to try to bring a sense of delight. And I think that can take a lot of different forms, but I feel like one of the strengths of these kind of installations is, like, unlike a booth, like we kind of know what we're getting into with a booth. You go to a game convention, you know there are going to be laptops, there's going to be games, and maybe there's going to be VR headsets. And all that stuff is cool, like that's the kind of stuff you're coming for. So it's really nice to have an opportunity to kind of surprise someone, and not in like ridiculous way where they can't believe this is happening, but just as going through the space and seeing something that is a little bit more to left field. If it's a big PVC installation with a bunch of LEDs hanging down, or a red-themed bedroom hanging out in an alcove, or like the GIF photo booth is like this big green screen with lights on it. And so like for ours, we knew we were projection mapping on a wall, and like projection mapping is always kind of delightful to begin with. But we knew like the game, in terms of how it actually plays in Unity, like it's a 4 keyboard button game. You go up down for player 1, you go up down for player 2. But we knew from the outset that we wanted to build a custom controller for it for exactly that, like, sense of delight and surprise. So that if you're playing it, and we see a lot of people going by, and like, oh, no, it's cool, and they see the controller, and they're like, oh, whoa! Just because, like, it's exciting. It's a 5-foot controller. It's really weird. It's impractical. And, like, it's designed to be impractical. It's designed specifically to only exist in this space, and as a result, to make playing the game feel really special, because you know that you can't go home and download this on your phone.
Right.
It requires this dumb, cumbersome controller that doesn't fit through subway stalls.
That's great. And Adele, how about for you? What was your experience?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was kind of thinking through like my previous projects and a few of the other festivals that I've done work for, like different games, probably my first one, come out and play, then a Maze Festival, and last year with Greg Purified for Times Square. Each of these games had various levels of complexity, and I think I initially came at things with like, oh, here's a story, here's a rule set, you do this, and then you get that, and then you do this, and then that happens. And the first time going to come out and play, almost immediately that just got beat out of me. I think the game had 3 stages, and in the end, we never got past stage 1 because people only wanted to listen for rules for like a minute or less. I think Times Square people said 3 lines. If you can't explain your game in 3 lines, you can't get people to play it. And so it's been this process of paring down, rules and kind of thinking about that precise thing, the delight. And how you can do something really quick. And I kind of sometimes describe this game as, it's a 1-button game. You just kind of have to do this. So with this game, I think the first thing I thought about was I know Terminal 5 and I love it. It's this cool space where you can kind of explore. And I wanted to have something that it would in a way run itself, where people could just kind of sit down under it or watch it if they didn't want to play. And so the notion of hanging stuff from the ceiling and kind of having this undulating sky or water effect was what we wanted to do. So similarly, people could just chill out, although that's not really happening. That was the initial intention, and then adding kind of layering interaction and trying to figure out how far you take it, and would people compete against each other? Would it be cooperative? How many people can we actually get in? And then considering what type of sensor or what would be the input was another layer of thinking around that. But I think for us, we've been surprised that just a lot of people were just coming by and going, oh, what's this? And how do we do this? And it's been nice to just jump in and play another round and have fun. And people will come by and I'm good. And then after a while, okay, we'll try. And then suddenly their face lights up. And it's just a totally different. It's a transformation. You have parents and their kids jumping around. You have giant dudes just going at it, and little kids playing with their friends. And so it's brought out I think all kinds of interactions that you really want play to bring out.
I would say out of anything, these installations really did bring that element of play. That really where the heart of the message of what the name of the convention is that it's not about a high score necessarily. It's not about, where can I download this and what platform can I play this, but really the idea that play can happen anywhere, and that even a wall or a bedroom, or a hallway can become something that you don't need a score to interact with, or to feel the excitement of playing with something, right? That there are games, and games have rules, and we can all talk about that until we're blue in the face about what exactly a game necessarily is. But at the end of the day, play really is anything, it really is. And that aspect of play I saw at all of the projects, every single one of them, whether it was the Giphy booth, whether it was the people holding the salmon roll big log and other people watching, there was just the sense of play was written all over their face, and I think that was really amazing. One of my other questions that I wanted to kind of switch gears on a little bit was just to hear what was your single biggest technical challenge of building this? Because I think a lot of people can understand what the game is, but building it is a whole nother thing. So if you can, try to explain for us lay people how some of the technical challenges of building it might have been. Andy, can you start us off?
Sure. So on a programmatic side, the game is really pretty simple. We designed it to be simple. And I did make it so all of the elements of the game can be clicked and dragged on the fly, because we knew we had to make them line up with a wall, and having to recompile a build every time is a nightmare. But I think the bigger thing we did with the controller is also really simple, but I'm not a woodworker at all. So I just
so piece of art.
Yeah, totally. But just going to get lumber and being I think these screws will work. No one else is home. All right, let's do it. And busting out my soldering iron for the first time in 5 years and doing some of the ugliest solder around. But I think that was it. And then Jane and I spending 3 hours threading 30 feet of wire through our like little wire sheet because we didn't know how far away from the computer we were gonna be. So yeah, I think while there were like no surprises in terms of the physical thing because we're so used to working with digital objects, just the amount of effort that was required to make a physical object definitely was one of the big things for us.
Yeah. Jenny, how about you?
Oh yeah. Okay. So I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but the way you play my game is with this plush controller, which looks like a stuffed animal. And I guess like biggest technical challenge is probably the fact that I haven't made a plush controller before. But I've sewn stuff before, and I got really excited at the idea of like making like a custom controller. So, you know, like it was just a lot of really quick prototyping. So I took like a Makey, which if anyone's heard of that, it's like a microcontroller that I don't know if anyone's seen the video, but you take like alligator clips and you clip it to the Makey, and then you clip it to a banana, and then you can like use the banana as like a space bar, you know? And that's kind of how I started prototyping the stuffed animal. But you know, it's like, oh, these wires are really cumbersome and like messy. So then after that, I like, you know, went on Adafruit, which is also like a site that has so many great resources for like hardware, especially for people who are like into, I don't know, like hobby electronics and stuff like that. And then like found out about the Flora, which is like another microcontroller, and just like started watching YouTube videos about like microcontrollers, you know, because everything's like free and online. And, you know, it's like, I don't know, I think just like with YouTube and just like with Googling stuff, you eventually figure out like, oh, this is how you can make a soft button. You just like need 2 sheets of aluminum foil, you know, and like like foam, and you can like start experimenting it with like household objects. And then like thinking about it as like, oh, well, I don't want this to look kind of crappy and, you know, like amateurish. So I'm going to like package it up nicely, and I'm going to, you know, sew it as a plush. And yeah, that was kind of the process. So it went from Makey to Flora, which is a microcontroller. And then I used conductive fabric and conductive thread to connect everything together. And I still feel like after watching people play, it's still very sensitive to touch. So I wish I could have figured out how to construct soft buttons, but I unfortunately didn't have time to do that. But, you know, it still works, and I think it's good.
I mean, I have to admit, when I saw the plush, I would have thought that that's what you did. That plush is so detailed.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Like, you should definitely check it out as far as just even like seeing a controller that, I mean, to hear that you learned from the start just for this project to kind of try this, try that, and then start putting stuff together. It's gorgeous.
Oh,
it's
thank
beautiful.
you. But ultimately, it's actually all like I don't know. It's like the plush is cute, but it's really just like keyboard inputs. It's just like left arrow key and right arrow key. So it's like nothing super complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to sell these someday. Yeah.
For the low price.
Yeah, $300.
And Adelle, how about for you? Biggest technical hurdle?
There were a couple. I guess the first one, similarly, we had to figure out how to get data out of Unity into controlling the LEDs, and so we went through a number of options. Like one could use Beagle Bone, another which we ended up using, and we love Teensy's. So yeah, they're another microcontroller made by Paul, who owns the Teensy thing, and the Octoboard. And basically, we're using the Teensy to send serial outputs through Cat5 data and ground out to the different LED strips. And one of the major technical challenges or thoughts around that was around power budgeting, and that has a lot more experience with like really large-scale LED sculptures. And so, you know, we kind of spent a long time kind of figuring out how much power we need, and you know, we kind of almost did an overkill with like four packs like of 10 amp batteries. And so, you know, but we just wanted to make sure that, you know, in case all the LEDs went on, you know, we weren't going to short anything. So that was one major technical challenge. And the other was not knowing where exactly the stars were going to be in physical space. And so kind of saw that sort of midway through, and I was like, okay, we could kind of like, write in all the positions on the day, but and then I thought, okay, let's invest some time to just make a configuration mode where what we're doing is actually, once the stars have been lifted up to the ceiling, then we kind of use controllers to actually like tell the game where the position of each star is, so that we wouldn't it wasn't going to take us like a whole day to do that type of thing.
That's awesome.
Can I give a quick shout out to the projects that don't have a rep right here?
Yeah, sure.
Because I do know for Forest Cup, Ivan wrote it himself and not like made the game himself in an engine, like wrote it from scratch. So he like decided a week ago that he needed a skeletal animation system in his framework and just added it. And for the Death by Audio Arcade, they got the GIF photo booth, and all of the GIFs are uploading to Giphy, and Giphy has an API that lets you do that, except they found out Thursday night? Yeah, or maybe Thursday or Friday that the API stopped working. So Neil from Death by Audio Arcade literally stayed up till 7 a.m. Saturday writing his own server to handle that upload process.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of the projects definitely had some technical hurdles to overcome.
Yeah. And the really cool thing about that GIF booth was that you could go in and you step on a pedal. I actually did it earlier today. Finally got a chance to. You stand in front of these lights, you step on the pedal, and you do something, and then it records it as the GIF, and then what it does is it uploads it to the server. And what we did is Terminal 5 has a lot of projectors in different areas, and they just play random GIFs that people are doing. So while you're walking around, you see people's GIFs while they're even doing, while they're playing it.
And it does upload to Giphy as well.
Oh, that's
so you got that part solved too.
That's great. I think the last question that I wanted to ask is if you can, it's kind of a two-part question. I think the first thing would be, what would you recommend for people who would be interested in making interactions with space, physical interactions and creating them, where they could get started or how to get started or how you got started? And the last part of that question is also if you could just follow it up with, what are you doing now, and where can we find more of your work? Jen, you want to start us off?
All right, so if you also want to make a push controller and don't know how to start, I would recommend getting a Makey. You don't even need to code. You can just plug it into your computer and then plug in alligator clips to it. And then, and yeah, that's the first place. Then I would go on adafruit.com. They have a bunch of resources and tutorials and YouTube videos, and I, just check all those out. When you stumble across something that really piques your interest, just look that up, and you'll you'll go down a rabbit hole of trying to figure out something. And Instructables is also a great website for that kind of learning. As for me and what I'm doing now, I guess I'm continuing to work on this, maybe part-time, but I would like to release this for iOS possibly. And I'm working on a couple other projects that are going to be debuting in the fall. And if you want to follow my progress and reach out to me, I'm on Twitter and on Instagram at QDork, and that's Q_dork. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the big things, especially if you want to start designing games for public spaces, the million very cool microcontroller options, and just building anything for a controller, anything would usually be interesting. Anything that isn't a keyboard or a 360 controller will probably be interesting. But I think it's also really worth keeping in mind the design of the game itself, especially when you're going to be showing it in a public space, because a lot of us as game designers have gotten really, really good at designing games to be played at home, and that's just a different experience. You kind of alluded to this before. You're like, oh, we made this game for a public space, and it had 3 levels, and no one saw any of them. Or people saw one of them, right? And that makes sense, because if you're making a game that someone's going to play at home, you're like, okay, well, this has to be interesting for a long amount of time, and that's not always the case for something in public space. I know when Jane and I are approaching games that are going to be played in public, we deliberately make it a lot simpler. we make sure that the audience will be involved in some way, even if they're not active participants, that this is a spectacle, that there is a reason to congregate around this. And those are both considerations that can actually be like bad design decisions for something at home. And so you kind of want to break out of that design mold and really think about where this game is going to be and what the context of this game is going to be and how that's different from other games you may have designed. I think that's definitely a really helpful thing when creating games for these kind of spaces. See, you can see more of my work at, I think Twitter is probably the best place to go for it. In terms of other projects right now, I teach at Long Island University. I teach game design and programming there, so the semester is about to start. I need to kind of gear back up for that, so everything else is on the back burner a little bit for now. But I'm on Twitter at Andy_makes. My partner for the game is on Twitter at JFriedhoff. And our artist, Diego Garcia, is on Twitter at Radstronomical. If you take a guess on the spelling, he's probably the only Radstronomical on there.
And yeah, Adelle, you can tell us.
So a couple more resources around microcontrollers. I would look up SparkFun, which is similar to Adafruit, and they have a lot of lessons, kind of instructable style stuff. And like I said, Teensy, Paul has like a crazy amount of applications and different Teensies and additional electronics that can add on to it. Some tools, I would say, if you want to hook up a microcontroller to Unity for the first time, I would get Uniduino, which has a really easy library that works with an Arduino, and I think it's like $30, and definitely a great investment. That's kind of how I started initially. So those are, some of the tools, I would say. And then in terms of game design, or thinking about design for public spaces, definitely like checking out like Come Out and Plays, like a long library of physical games is definitely a must do. And I think, so like with prototyping though, one of my collaborators once told me, she was like, Sophie Kravitz, and we did some unicorns together. The thing she said is like, think about what is the magic that people are going to see from like 20 to 40 feet away, and kind of focus on that, and then the rest will kind of fall into place. Mine and Mac's work can be seen on our website, touchtext.io. And you can see some of the other projects that we're working on. I'm on Twitter, Adelle Lin, and Instagram as well. I post most frequently on those two. And Matt's at Mvinner.
Oh yeah, I forgot to add. So my collaborator's Twitter handle is badtetris, bad_Tetris. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, and yeah, we're hopefully going to release Starcatcher on a VR platform on itch.
Well, it's been awesome working with you. You've definitely inspired me as an artist who creates, and seeing the stuff that you made was just honestly, it's really been unbelievable. And like I said, just to wrap up, my best moment about being a part of this, on top of working with you, was that I had heard people down on the floor who literally said the thing that I only wanted out of this was that people would say, "Do you see anything cool? See anything cool? Yeah, I saw some stuff that's cool. What'd you see? Oh, did you see the star catcher thing up on the 3rd floor? No. What was it? Is it a game? No, you gotta go see it. No, you gotta go see it." And like I heard that from multiple people that just said, the convention was awesome, all the games were awesome, but there was that one little extra star that just put it at a point where kids got their imagination fueled, and that was all that I wanted out of the game's Graffiti, and wanted for you to be able to have a platform to make that possible. So thank you so much for being a part of it, and I look forward to taking more initiatives to make this kind of stuff happen more often, which is great. So thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Few minutes, we'll have Rebecca Bennett next with her talk on mixed reality, the methods and madness of mixed reality content creation. So hope you can hang out for that. Thanks so much.